Soros decided to stop making money and start giving it away instead. In doing so, he changed the world.
No one else in modern politics has anywhere near the power and influence of George Soros.
George Soros's individual profit of £1 billion equated to over £12 for each man, woman and child in Britain.
Britain, 16th of September 1992, Wednesday. On this day, the Bank of England, or the United Kingdom's central bank, lost £3.3 billion at the foreign exchange market to speculators who heavily shorted the sterling pounds. This event was later reported by the international media as the day when speculators broke the pound. Among this group of speculators, one trader pocketed $1 billion on a single-day gain, an achievement so stupendous that it cemented his reputation as the premier currency speculator in the world. This man is George Soros. From this day, George Soros wrote his trading life into the history of financial markets, as he continued to create waves of biblical proportions globally. His name became the euphemisms for various phases, from the alchemy of finance to the rogue trader. In the former, Soros manipulated global currencies, turning them into his personal automated teller machines. In the latter, Soros was accused of ruining countries' economies and stealing from the hard-earned wealth of these nations. Who is this man? And how exactly did he break the Bank of England? George Soros, born in the year 1930, is a Hungarian-American Jew. He is 92 years old as of the year 2023. In 2021, Soros had a net worth of $8.6 billion and is described as a philanthropist, having donated more than $32 billion to the Open Society foundations. Because of his controversial global currency trades, there were many books and biographies published under his name. One of these was George Soros: A Life in Full, published in 2022 by Peter Osnos. In this book, Osnos wrote,
Soros cited 1944 as the best year of his life. He was 14 years old, living as a non-practicing Jew under the Nazis in Hungary, and hiding in various places throughout Budapest. His adored father had changed the family name from Shorts to Soros, and moving from house to house, young George learned to cope with danger and live with risk. These early life lessons, plus an education at the London School of Economics, catapulted Soros into immense personal wealth as a financial analyst. Fluency in French, German, Hungarian, and English helped him master the international markets, in which he accrued that wealth. His quantum fund, which made $5.5 billion in 2013, became the most successful hedge fund in history. Yet, at the age of 49, Soros decided to stop making money and start giving it away instead. In 1979, he founded his Open Society Foundation and began rewriting the definition of global philanthropy. In doing so, he changed the world.
While Osnos lavished his book with Soros' philanthropies and rags to riches stories, other authors were critical of this same man, as they associate him with shady and under-the-table conspiracies. In another book, also published in 2022, by Matt Palumbo, a very different perspective of Soros emerged, one of the darker side. In the book titled, The Man Behind the Curtain, Inside the Secret Network of George Soros, Palumbo wrote,
No one else in modern politics has anywhere near the power and influence of George Soros, both domestically and internationally. Backed by the tens of billions of dollars he's accumulated throughout his career, Soros has his hand in influencing the media, activist groups, colleges, presidential elections, global elections, local US politics, and much more. Soros has earned himself a reputation as a boogeyman character on the right. And nowhere else will you read such an extensive documentation of his influence as in this book.
On the international stage, Soros' reputation is also far from good. During the 1997 Asian financial crisis, the then Prime Minister of Malaysia, Dr. Mahathir, called Soros a moron. He accused Soros as a financial titan who seek to reverse decades of economic development that propelled tens of millions into the middle class. Soros was portrayed by Mahathir and other nationalists as representing global capital, in all its fickleness. You may have to read these books yourself to formulate your own conclusions about George Soros.
While we may never get to know the real facet of his personalities, the financial markets continued to closely scrutinize every trade Soros made. The following 5 trades can arguably be ranked as his largest, if not, his most notorious currency trades. 1. Betting against the sterling pound. Soros' bet against the British pound has been called one of the greatest currency trades of all time. The economic and financial climate in Britain at that time was a prerequisite for his stupendous trade to be possible. We will discuss later in detail, giving the insights to how he achieved this feat. 2. Betting against the Thai baht. Soros also allegedly made a massive bet against the Thai baht during the Asian financial crisis in 1997. It is estimated that he bet $1 billion of a $12 billion portfolio that the currency would implode, which eventually happened when the Bank of Thailand had run out of ammunition to support its currency to fend off short sellers. In part 2 of this series, we will also provide the details to this feat. 3. Betting against the Japanese yen. In 2013 and 2014, Soros made another large bet against the Japanese yen. At that time, the Japanese economy was still struggling to walk out of the long period of economic stagnation, otherwise known as the lost decades. The Japanese Prime Minister at that time, Shinzo Abe, engaged in extensive monetary easing to jump-start the Japanese economy. These economic policies were later termed as Abenomics. These again provided Soros with the conditions for him to execute his currency trades, where he netted around $1 billion yet again. If you are interested to find out more about Abenomics, type Abenomics in the commentaries below. I will make a video on this topic if there are enough requests. So far, the 3 trades above were closed with Soros was the ultimate winner in the bets. However, trading is a double-edged sword. In the next 2 trades, Soros is not so lucky and he ended up on the losing side of the trades. These 2 trades were less commonly discussed in the currency trading world. As a result, even though Soros suffered huge losses in these trades, he is still remembered as the legendary trader, deeply revered by most currency traders. 4. Betting against the Hong Kong dollar. During 1997, where Soros won against the Thai government in his bets against the Thai baht, Soros went on to the next phase of his operations to bet against the Hong Kong dollar. His plans were to make use of the proceeds, which he had accumulated in his bets on Thai baht, as ammunition against the Hong Kong Monetary Authority. However, Soros was unsuccessful this time, and ended up burning his fingers badly. It was estimated that he lost $15 billion in his bet against Hong Kong dollars in 1997. The real figures were never disclosed to date. 5. Betting against the Hong Kong dollar again. 22 years after losing his bet, Soros made a comeback and bet against the Hong Kong dollar again, in 2019. However, the tides turned against him, and Soros was defeated with a $2.4 billion loss. We will show you the trade insights where you will see the consistent patterns whenever Soros executed his massive bets on the currencies.
It is important to be familiarized with the economic and financial climate of Britain back during the 1990s, in order to fully understand how Soros managed to break the pound. Since October 1990, Britain was part of the European Exchange Rate Mechanism, or ERM. The ERM, in turn, was established in 1979 as a way of stabilizing exchange rates and inflation between countries. This essentially involved pegging member currencies within a certain band of the European Currency Unit, or ECU, a weighted basket of member currencies. This move was much needed by Britain, as it was experiencing low growth but high interest rates and high inflation within its economy. As joining the ERM was a means to help them achieve disinflation. The decision to join was largely supported by the then-Chancellor John Major, businesses and the press. For this to balance out, sterling pound must be added to ECU at a price compatible to the dominant currencies that were already in the ECU. The Deutsche Mark was the dominant currency back then, due to the strong economic growth and low inflation levels of post-reunification Germany. When Britain entered the ERM, it was at Deutsche Mark 2.95 to the pound, which many economists felt was too high a rate to the Deutsche Mark. Naturally, the choice would be to allow the pound to depreciate against the Deutsche Mark. However, the Bank of England insisted that this was the right value. The Bank of England will need to buy enough pounds to maintain it at this higher rate. This created a loophole for speculators who believed that the Bank of England did not have enough resources to maintain this higher rate. They started to sell short on pounds, betting that the selling pressure will force the British government with no choice but to withdraw from the ERM and devalue the pound. These beliefs caused Soros to build up a monumental short position of around £10 billion, convincing other large speculators to do the same. When the pound fell below the lower band of the ERM, Soros would profit enormously. And profit he did. September 16, 1992, Wednesday. 0800 hours. Within minutes of market opening, the pound was coming under renewed selling pressure. Soros's quantum fund led a field of speculators, who borrowed UK gilts only to sell them, and buy them back later at cheaper prices. 1000 hours, mid-morning. Selling was so intense that Bank of England officials were buying £2 billion of sterling an hour. An emergency meeting among top officials prompted the then Prime Minister, John Major, to consider raising interest rates. This was the other measure to use if Bank of England still insisted on maintaining pounds at the higher rate in the ECU. At that point, interest rate was already at a high of 10%. 1100 hours. Announcement was made that interest rate will increase to 12% from 10%. With most British homeowners on variable rate mortgages, this meant that their monthly borrowing costs had just leapt by 20%. 1200 hours, noon. Bank of England was buying more sterling in the last 4 hours than anybody had before or since. Yet all these purchases lost value on the same day. News had filtered through to traders that the head of the German Bundesbank was in favor of Britain devaluing its currency. Prime Minister John Major was still hopeful to protect sterling and insisted that interest rates be raised to 15%. By mid-afternoon, the announcement was made that the lending rate was going up to 15%. 1600 hours. Sterling pounds is still outside its currency band. 1940 hours. Prime Minister John Major conceded defeat. The Chancellor, Norman Lamont, declared that Britain had suspended its membership of the ERM. Next morning on the 17th of September 1992, the Bank of England cut interest rates all the way down to 9%, and the government embarked on a new strategy based on a weak currency. It strengthened the economy nicely, but not the political fortunes of the Conservative Party, who was led by John Major at that time. One of the many important lessons from the incident, which was to be reinforced in numerous emerging markets over the decade that followed, is that governments can't peg a currency above a level that the market will not accept. 13 years later, Treasury papers would be released showing the cost to be an estimated £3.3 billion. George Soros's individual profit of £1 billion equated to over £12 for each man, woman and child in Britain. And dubbing Soros as the man who broke the Bank of England.